A $750 XRP by 2026. Is this possible? Wait, before we click off or you try to tell me this is clickbait down in the comments, hear me out. We have somebody like Jake Claver. He is the CEO of Digital Ascension Group, who, by the way, was a speaker at SALT this year, is putting his name and reputation on XRP going to $750 by 2026. So is that possible? Let's dive in and try to figure this out. Okay, before I get started, go ahead and hit that like button, that subscribe button, and let's take a look at this. We have XRP having 100 billion tokens ever in existence. And they are also deflationary. They will burn over time. So we have a dissolving limited asset, okay? So we have 100 billion in existence, 20 billion went to founders and early contributors. And then the 80 billion went to Ripple. So Ripple now takes 40 billion of that 80 billion that was remaining on the market and puts it into escrow, leaving 40 billion on the market. So now when we're doing the math, we're not looking at 100 billion XRP supply per se. We are looking at a 40 billion XRP supply. So that brings that number way down. And also keep in mind, it's not a security, it's more of a commodity, which it hasn't been labeled commodity yet. But if and when it does, that also changes the dynamics of how you price it. That's something else you have to keep in mind. Okay, but we also know Bitcoin and Ethereum is not a security, they're commodities. We've already seen it happen, so it's very possible. Also keep that in mind. So over here, let's look at this from Crypto in America. We have Vanguard ICE Crypto ETF access for brokerage clients. Keep in mind, Vanguard is number 2 when it comes to assets under management, just below BlackRock. BlackRock's about 15 trillion assets under management, and then Vanguard is 10 trillion assets under management. That's the comparison you're looking at here. This is why this is huge, but also why this is huge, keep this in mind too. Vanguard's CEO is a 10-year BlackRock veteran who oversaw the launch of BlackRock's widely successful Bitcoin ETF IBIT, which has seen over 60 billion in net inflows since its debut January 2024, and now holds more than 80 billion in assets. So the same guy that helped oversee Bitcoin's release for the spot ETF and adoption is now at Vanguard looking to do the same thing with other cryptos. And if you know anything about XRP, you know this is a highly sought after asset. You can't tell me that Vanguard's not going to make that happen. And you know if Vanguard's going to make that happen, BlackRock's going to make that happen. And we already saw that happening and kind of formatting right now when we talk about Brad Garlinghouse releasing that BlackRock's Build L will start using XRP L and RLUSD. That bridge is already being formed. And now you have that bridge trickling over to Vanguard right in front of you. Pay attention, because that's how assets get bought up really quick. So then let's look at this to give you a better understanding. So then we have, this is from TradingView on September 24th, 7.5 billion XRP in volume as first XRP US ETF welcomes options trading. 7.5 billion, okay? So now let's check this out. The XRP ETF, XRPR, saw $24 million in volume in 90 minutes. But for the day, they saw 37 million volume in just one day of this Rex Osprey Spot XRP ETF. God, that's a mouthful, right? But let's look at what that really means. So $37 million equates to, at the time that sold on September 19th, XRP was at $3.11. So that equates to 11,897,106 XRP being sold. So 11.8 million XRP in one day off a small exchange like this happened in one day. So 11 million XRP, because their spot XRP is removed. Boom, one day, that quick, something so small. So now let's keep reading. That we have right here, it says, according to CoinGlass data, XRP is recording $7.5 billion in futures over the last 24 hours. So now let's think about that. That was just on the futures and all that. So XRP is not being removed from the market, but the money is showing you that the demand is there, saying there's 7.5 billion in 24 hours for XRP futures. So the demand is there. So now you know that demand's there for that. They're going to create that spot ETF, because thinking about $7.5 billion in spot ETF happening in one day, now think about how much XRP is off the market. Now you see how it's getting more expensive very quickly, right? It doesn't take a long time. So where can we see this also playing out is over here on the CME group. Ripple and CME and XRP is working together, as you well know, but they're looking at a 4-month recap. They have sold the equivalent. Keep in mind, these aren't spot. These aren't actual physical XRP. This is just an ETF. But they saw 6 billion XRP equivalent in 4 months off of CME group. Now take that 6 billion and think of it as a spot ETF. How much more XRP would be removed from the market just from CME group? Okay. You see how you're getting bigger thoughts? Now think about people like BlackRock and Vanguard, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity. They're all putting spot ETFs out at the same time. If that happens, that supply that we know is about 40 billion on the market or so, that's going to be wiped out super quick. Keep in mind, the Rex sold in one day 11 million off a very small exchange. This is where that excitement comes in. And this is where Jake starts thinking, could this be possible? And this is why he thinks it could be possible, because it just takes a switch for them all to unite at one time. And in 1 month, you'll see a swing. I'm going to show you a better breakdown of that here in a second. Right over here, you can look at from the NASDAQ, came out September 26. Multiple smart ETFs, XRP ETFs could be around the corner. Don't expect dramatic price gains. They're kind of throwing warnings out, but it's kind of a little bit of a teaser. But it says, keep in mind that the first spot Ethereum ETFs tell a different story. They got the green light in May 2024 and launched a few months later. Ethereum's price saw a sustainable dip in months after, and then it shot back up essentially, okay? So Ethereum's ETF was sent out, it dropped, Bitcoin's went up. Bitcoin and Ethereum are two different beasts, so we can't compare XRP to Bitcoin because it's not the same class, but XRP and Ethereum are very similar to each other, okay? So let's check this out. This is on that same post here. It says Ripple could also take some of the global international remittances market, which Allied Market Research estimates would surpass $1.3 trillion by 2032. Its real-world asset tokenization platform and stablecoin solutions could provide valuable as institutions grapple with ways to record digital ownership. So we are having institutions trying to figure out how to record digital ownership. So they want to gobble this up for themselves before all these rules and regulations get hit. And then that price shoots up. That's how they stay rich, right? So they're all fighting for these assets, especially somebody like Ripple that's going to be in high demand. Okay, so we see how through spot ETFs, you could have a demand overnight remove the only remaining 40 billion XRP off the market fairly quickly. Okay, so now let's look at this. So Ethereum, let's figure out how much is out there for Ethereum. Ethereum is 120.7 million ETH out there. And we just now spoke about XRP being about 40 billion that's on the market, right? So let's think of it that way. But let's also look at what XRP and spot ETFs formed and kind of compare them to each other, okay? So walk with me on this. We have right here on TradingView, I'm looking at the daily for Ethereum. So Ethereum's launch was right here on July 23rd. Then we saw the dip right after that, as the article was speaking about, they saw that dip. But then fast forward, and this is from July 23rd through August 7th. That's important because then you fast forward over here to November 4th. After you break out of that dip, you see this massive gain here shooting up to December 6th. We're bouncing back. So what are we looking at here? What kind of numbers are we looking at right here? So if you look at the actual drop, I have it written down here. So the actual drop in the first 16 days, which is what you're looking at on the screen, dropped by 32%. That's in the first 16 days. And then we rolled it out for a couple of months and went from August to November. Then we saw from November to December in 1 month. Then you saw a 67% spike. So that 67% spike happened in just that 1 month after this 32% dip. So could we be seeing that same thing happening right now in front of us when we look at XRP's price? We do see, let's take a look over here. You have right here on September 19th, XRP, let me get that to land. 18th is when the spot ETF hit. That was about $3.12 is when that hit. And then you look at today's market, we're at $2.71, about the same time frame that Ethereum's price was dropping after their spot ETF originally launched. If you're trying to track what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying. We're seeing the same pattern in my belief that Ethereum and XRP are tracking each other as far as the release of the XRP ETF. So if we're seeing this dip right now and XRP, we're coming down pretty good on that. We're looking at 11% dip since the release of spot ETF from Rex. And we saw Ethereum dropped all the way down to 32%, but they rode out a couple of months from that point and shot back up 67%. So could we see from September going through October into November a rocky wave, as we saw right over here with Ethereum? Right here in this time frame, their drop to their peak, they went through a little bit of a high and low. Are we in that same spot right now, to where by December we could see that 67% spike? And if we do that right now, just that spike alone, we're bringing XRP to $5.31. But that's with our $100 billion supply, or 100 billion XRP supply in configuration. But keep in mind, that's not a true number. It's not really written as a commodity yet. There's a lot of factors that could change in a quick amount of time to make that happen, is the theory. So now you tell me, is that something that's possible, or is this just all crazy cuckoo, crazy stuff that everybody's just hoping for? I don't know. It's a conversation. So let me down in the comments. What do you think about it? All right. So I got for you guys on this one. So as always, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and become that change you want to see in the world. I'll see you on the next one.